Okay, Butch, so taking that email that you sent that logo, that black and white logo. So I was going to just walk through how to do that from directly from my Gmail account. I've downloaded the file that you emailed, the back rack logo. So we're going to take that JPEG, and then I've downloaded that to my documents folder. So then what I'm going to do is slide over to my Windows computer, and then in my Windows, I'm going to open up my CorelDRAW. This is CorelDRAW 2017, the brand new version, although you could use just about any version of Corel for this process. Um, so as this opens, it's going to open up to a little workspace thing that we'll skip over. Um, but the whole simple process is taking the logo, importing it into a new document. So a page size that's going to match the size of the coaster. So you mentioned putting that on a coaster. So I'm going to type in 4-inch coaster here, and we'll make our page size 4 by 4. And then we're going to choose OK. That makes our page in CorelDRAW 4 by 4. So that's where our logo is going to go. And then we're going to import that logo from my downloads into, and of course you sent the JPEG, so we're importing that into the page. And I can push enter, and that centers it on the page as it is, the correct size to scale. Now you'll see that the image that is selected down here in the status bar says 300 dpi, and so that's the minimum resolution you want something imported to use at the size you plan to engrave it. Now we could go a little larger than that, but we probably want to trace it first. We don't want to really stretch the logo when it's in pixel form. So just about any of your logos or photographs that are pixels made of dots instead of lines, you kind of want to have a minimum of 300 dpi at the size you plan to engrave it. Then for our coaster, if you have a round coaster, then what you could do is create a little template outline to be sure that that particular logo will fit inside that coaster. So I'll make that circle 4 by 4 and center that on the page. And therefore, what that allows us to do is be sure that that particular logo is fit inside that circle. So we can stretch that just a little bit further, but you see the resolution will decrease. But that's not too big of a deal, because now once we've got it the decent size, and we can go ahead and trace that. We can select the logo, and once that logo is selected, we can go ahead and print this as is. We don't have to always trace a logo, so if you have a decent resolution, we're going to choose the Helix as our printer, and then the Preferences button opens up our dashboard. Notice that's in the center of my laser. 24 by 18 is the table size of the machine. So raster is the engraving, and there is a DPI or resolution setting we can adjust based on how much resolution we want the laser to etch. And then we have the speed and power, and these are going to vary based on the type of material, whether it's wood, leather, plastic, granite, marble, tile. And we have a cookbook or recipe that comes with the machine, but the piece size of the machine is 24 by 18. We're going to tell it autofocus, send to the laser and the manager. So when we say OK, it still defaults to the center, but we have the ability oh yeah, so I'm going to open up a DAT file and show you that in the Advanced tab of this, we can create a cork coaster setting. So in a particular file folder, we can save a list of material settings. Now there's a group of these settings that come with the machine, and you can see many of those here. But I'm going to make a brand new setting for cork coaster. And so I can choose a different machine and put these in different folders, and once I choose the right directory for the system, then what you'll see is you can create your own custom list. So you can use the list that Epilog provides and build off of that list all of these material settings, or I can make my own. And so by doing that, we see that once we reestablish the handshake at the right folder, then we should see right about here, cork coaster. So either way, we can build off of theirs or make our own. And that's going to be all of those settings that are saved from the General tab into that name. So when we say load those settings and OK, then that's ready to go. So we're going to say OK, and then that is in the center. Now with the CorelDRAW, we're going to choose Layout and move that to the upper left of the laser. Remember, the upper left corner of the page represents also the upper left corner of the table. So that takes not just the logo, but that whole 4-inch page and moves that to the upper left corner. And therefore, we're ready to print. So it's going to go to the corner, and then we can print that directly to the machine. So then that's going to show up over at the laser. Now we can also see that this particular logo, even though it's black and white, we're looking at some intricate parts here that are a little jagged. So what I want to also show is we can send over that JPEG just as it was as a pixel image. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how we could take a logo and clean it up by tracing a pixel file and converting that to outlines or lines. And so this trace bitmap allows you to take something that was scanned or made in pixels, and it converts that to line art, and so that it's much easier to clean. And so we can choose to remove the color from the background, and that gets rid of all of the off-whites and the colors and looks at just the black and white logo part. And then we can adjust the level of detail. We're missing some things there in the bite, but if we scroll over, then we can see some things show back up here. So with finer level of detail, we can move that off to the side and show you the difference between the pixel image and the line art file. So if I go up to View and Wireframe, we see that the one that we traced is made of lines, and the one that we started with was made of pixels. So usually you'll always get a cleaner image if you work in line art, but just as I showed you previously, you don't always have to print the laser strictly line art. You can use JPEGs and bitmaps as long as it's decent resolution. But this is a traced image that we can also send to the laser, and we'll just kind of send these back to back with the same court coaster setting, and just load that up in memory and say print, and that's still going to go to the upper left, and it goes straight over to the machine. And all of these images now are made up of lines instead of pixels, so it'll be much cleaner when it makes it over to the laser. We won't see any jagged pixels or things like that. It's just going to be line art. So here at the machine, we're going to look at the Helix. This is the machine I can bring out and demonstrate. And this front door can open, and that allows us to show you that you can move the table up and down to accommodate thicker parts. So on the laser's display, we see the job, and that's the 4-inch coaster. We've got our coaster simply slid to the upper left corner of the machine. So we'll zoom up on that, and that's going to move out in autofocus. That's what we told it in the driver. So that's going to autofocus directly to the coaster, drop down 2 inches away, and then start to etch. Now what I realize is as this laser etches with that, that setting that I used, I'm using too low of a power. So I used a low DPI like 300 DPI, and then a really low power like 25%. And so what you're seeing is that that's not burning as deep or as dark as it could be. And we'll let this finish. But you'll find that there's many cases where you'll test a material, and as you test it, you'll need to adjust the speed and the power to optimize the appearance on that particular material. And of course, there's all different species of leathers, coasters, corks, and granites and marbles and tiles and woods and plywoods. So it doesn't hurt to always take a sacrificed piece of material and test the speed and the power to be sure you've got it set correctly. Now, that doesn't mean you can't rerun it. As long as you simply push the go button, we're not going to have to resend the job. We can resend it. Now, on the laser's display, what I did was I increased the power by about another 10 to 15%. So by increasing that power, it simply is burning, as you can see, really clean and darker, a darker contrasting image on this particular piece of leather. So just all part of the process of working with new materials, and that'll be something you do to anything that you haven't lasered before. And there's a lot of suppliers that sell these materials that come with a suggested speed and power based on what wattage machine you have. So I'm using a 60-watt laser here, and we're running at 100% speed. So that took 1 minute and 25 seconds on a 60 watt at 100% speed with this Helix laser.